In the small town of Umokoro, where everyone knew everyone and secrets never stayed buried for long, lived two sisters, Obianuju and Chisom. They were not the kind of girls people admired or praised. In fact, most villagers never even called them by their names. They were simply known as those two ugly girls. Obianuju, the older one, was tall and bony, with skin darkened unevenly by years of walking under the sun. Chisom, a little shorter, had a flat nose, crooked teeth, and eyes that never seemed to look in the same direction. The town was unkind, especially to girls like them, girls who didn't fit the narrow mold of what people called beautiful. Children mocked them, laughing and pointing them whenever they passed, adults avoided them, and suitors wouldn't even come near their compound. But Obianuju and Chisom were not ones to hide. They called themselves the iconic sisters and walked through Umokoro with boldness that irritated everyone. They wore heavy makeup, foundation 5 shades lighter than their skin, thick red lipstick that smeared at the corners, and eyelashes that looked like feathers stuck to their lids. Their clothes were flashy, often mismatched, but they wore them with confidence that almost looked like defiance. Just to feel among and for the villagers to notice their beauty. But no matter what makeup they wear, the villagers still see them as the ugliest girls in the village. See them, Mama Ebra would hiss as they passed by. Looking like masquerades and still walking like queens. Obianuju and Chisom didn't care. Or at least, they acted like they didn't. They walked across the market as if they were the princesses of the land. Obianuju and Chisom were so troublesome, always in everybody's business. They put themselves in conversations that didn't concern them and argued with anyone bold enough to throw shade. But beneath the loudness, the makeup, and the insults they threw back at the world, the sisters carried a quiet sadness. What people didn't see were the evenings they sat in their small room, wiping off their makeup in silence. Or the way Chisom would look at herself in the mirror and then look away quickly. Or the times Obianuju stayed up late, pretending to be busy, just so Chisom wouldn't hear her crying. They weren't naturally troublesome. They weren't wicked. They were just two girls who had learned to wear armor made of attitude. Life in Umokoro had never given them a chance to be soft. Their mother, before she passed, used to say, "Beauty is not in the face, my daughters, but in the heart." But the world didn't see their hearts, it only saw what was on the surface and judged them without mercy. Sometimes, the words people threw at them cut deeper than they let on. One day, at the market, as they walked with their bold makeup and colorful dresses, they came across some maidens who laughed at them. "Even evil spirits go fear these ones," one of the maidens said. They all laughed at them as they passed when they thought the girls couldn't hear. They heard. They always heard. Even the men of the village refused to marry them, they will always throw shade at them, "Who will marry these ones?" Some other men will say even if they dash them for free, they won't collect. Still, they showed up, loud, bold, and unapologetic, but the weight was getting heavier. One evening, after a particularly cruel day filled with laughter behind their backs and whispers that followed them like shadows, the sisters sat outside under the old guava tree behind their house. "I dey try, Uju," Chisom said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I no sure say I fit continue like this." Obianuju didn't answer immediately. She stared into the sky, the fireflies dancing in the distance. "I know," she finally said. "Me too." And that was when they decided they would do something different. Something unexpected. Something out of the ordinary. They didn't know exactly what yet. But they knew one thing, they were tired of pretending. Tired of fighting to be accepted and tired of wearing a mask just to survive each day. The days that followed felt heavier than usual. Everywhere Obianuju and Chisom went, it was like the laughter got louder, the whispers bolder. Even the children, who used to run away at the sight of the iconic sisters, now stood at corners singing cruel songs. Obianuju and Chisom. Two market witches. One face bend, one face scratch, Onijieluho. Who go marry them? Some women laughed until tears rolled down their cheeks. Even in the village women meeting, during announcements, when Obianuju once stood to contribute during women's meeting, someone from the back murmured loudly, "Abeg, make she sit. We dey talk beauty, no be beast." That one cut deep. At home, they had nothing but each other. Obianuju stopped wearing makeup for a few days, and Chisom barely spoke. Their compound, once filled with loud arguments and exaggerated greetings, became quiet. They avoided the market. They stopped walking to the well at their usual time. They stayed indoors, waiting for the noise to fade. But it didn't. One evening, as the sun disappeared behind the hills of Umokoro, Obianuju stood in front of the small broken mirror hanging on their mud wall. "Chisom," she said softly, "do you believe our mother was right?" "About what?" Chisom murmured from the corner where she sat, peeling sweet potato without interest. "That beauty is in the heart." Chisom looked up, her eyes filled with pain. "Our hearts dey pure, Uju. But wetting it don't help us. The village know they look heart. Them they look face." They sat in silence for a long time until Obianuju spoke again. "We can't keep living like this," she said firmly. "If the world won't see our hearts, then we need to find a way to change our story. We need a solution." Chisom's voice trembled. "You want make we bleach? Or run away?" "No," Obianuju said. "We go find help, real help. Maybe it's spiritual. Maybe it's something else. But I believe there's something out there for us." The next day, the sisters packed a small bag, 2 wrappers, their mother's old Bible, and a bottle of palm oil. They wrapped their heads in scarves and left at dawn before anyone in the village could see them. They were heading to Tioa, a quiet, faraway village known for its mysterious river and an old woman who people said could see into the soul. Some said she was a prophetess. Others said she was a madwoman. But all agreed she had once helped a man with a crooked leg walk again, and if she could do that, maybe, just maybe, she could help them too. Their journey was long. They walked through thick bush paths, crossed small rivers, slept on bamboo benches in strangers' compounds. They faced stares, insults, and even kindness that startled them. But they kept moving. Not because they believed a miracle was waiting, but because they were desperate. Desperate to be seen. Desperate to belong. Desperate to no longer be the ugly girls of Umokoro. And as they approached the narrow path that led to Tioa, the wind whispered through the trees as if it knew the iconic sisters were coming. They didn't know what they would find. But they had already made the most important decision of their lives. To stop enduring. And to start transforming. The journey to Tioa had taken them 2 full days. Their slippers were worn thin, feet blistered and dusty, yet Obianuju and Chisom didn't stop until they reached the edge of the village, where the trees grew taller and the air felt strange, thick, like it carried secrets. They found the old woman's hut just as it was described, a round mud house with white markings on the walls and dried herbs hanging from the ceiling like sleeping bats. Smoke curled from a small fire at the center. And there she sat, bent with age, skin wrinkled like old yam peel, but eyes sharp and piercing. She looked up as they approached, and before they could greet her, she said softly, "I have been expecting you." Obianuju and Chisom exchanged quick glances. The old woman didn't ask them to explain why they came. She simply ushered them in, gave them water to drink, and offered them roasted yam and palm oil. When they finally spoke, pouring out their pain, their humiliation, and their desire for change, she listened in silence. No judgment, no surprise, only stillness. "I understand your pain," she continued, her voice gentle. "But the word's cruelty does not define your worth. You have come to me for change, but I tell you, go back. Accept yourselves. Something big awaits you both in Umokoro. Your future is tied to that village. Do not ruin it by chasing the wrong kind of change." Chisom frowned. But Mama, we are tired. Tired of pretending, tired of fighting, tired of being mocked. The woman smiled sadly. I know, my daughter. But not all battles are meant to be fought with force. Some require patience, faith, and wisdom. Obianuju stood up slowly. So, you won't help us? I already have, the woman replied. By telling you the truth. With heavy hearts, the sisters left the next morning. They walked in silence, each step heavier than the last. The road back to Umokoro felt colder somehow. The sky looked duller. There was no excitement in returning, only confusion, frustration, and disappointment. And when they finally saw the familiar clay rooftops of their village again, something inside them twisted. The market noise returned. The insults returned. Nothing had changed. So they made a decision. They would not listen to the old woman. They would change their fate, with or without her help. That evening, Obianuju and Chisom sat in their room, wondering about what to do next. We will become more than this village can handle, Obianuju said, her eyes burning with determination. If they will not accept us, they will watch us rise. And from that day, the iconic sisters began crafting a plan. A plan that would shake Umokoro to its core. A plan that, though born of pain, would birth something unforgettable. That night, as thunder roared in the distance and rain tapped gently on their zinc roof, Chisom sat covered up in their mother's old wrapper, her eyes distant. Uju, she said quietly, do you remember that story Mama used to tell us? About the river of beauty. Obianuju turned from the small charcoal fire they used for warmth. The one she said was hidden deep in the forest. Where people would go, look into the water, and come out transformed. Chisom nodded. She used to say, true beauty comes from within, but sometimes, even nature lends a helping hand. I thought it was just a bedtime story, but what if it wasn't? Obianuju's eyes narrowed. A faint hope flickered in her chest. You think it's real? Chisom sat up straighter. I don't know. But Mama wasn't the type to lie. And she always said that the river doesn't work for people with wicked hearts. That it reflects only what's inside you. Silence settled between them. Then Obianuju stood and rapped. Then we'll find it. If it exists, we will find it. If it means walking through forests, crossing rivers, sleeping under trees. I don't care. We are not staying here to rot in shame and insult. The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, they packed again. This time, they didn't tell anyone. Not even the curious neighbor, Mama Nkechi, who always peeped through her window like a lizard. They followed the old forest trail Mama used to talk about in her stories, the one that led beyond the hills, past the mango trees that near the village stream. For days, they walked, with each step, the whispers of their mother's voice echoed in their minds. The river of beauty shows your true self. But only those who walk with pain and purity will ever find it. And so, with sore feet and blistered hands, Obianuju and Chisom pushed forward, through rainstorms and scorching sun, drawn by the dream of standing before that magical river. A river that could finally reflect who they were on the inside, strong, kind-hearted, brave. They didn't know exactly where it was. They didn't know if it was even real. But hope was a powerful thing. And the iconic sisters had just enough of it left to believe. They were determined. Because if the world refused to see their beauty, then they would travel to the ends of the earth to show it to themselves. Weeks passed. Then months. Umokoro fell silent in a way it never had before. At first, the villagers laughed. Those ugly girls don't run again. Maybe them they look for another village to disturb. Some joked. But as the days turned into months, and the market air grew still without the sharp voices of Obianuju and Chisom stirring drama or interrupting quarrels, the laughter faded. No one knew anything about them. Obianuju and Chisom never returned, and no one heard about the iconic sitters again. The end.